Story 1. When someone shows you how they handle anger early on, believe it the first time.
A month in, my ex had a road rage incident with me and my little brother in the car. I was so mad I broke up with him. But then my brother told me I overreacted, so I got back with him. He said he wouldn't do it again. He ended up punching walls, banging his head on things, and threatening suicide if I left. I developed really severe anxiety. I should have listened to my first instinct.
I'm going to be completely honest. I did this because that's how my dad used to handle his anger. The thought of hitting my partner never crossed my mind, but if I was working on something, I'd swear and throw down the screwdriver or something. I saw how uncomfortable it made my girlfriend at the time and promised myself and her I'd never burst out like that again. Maybe it was an age thing too, but now I've just learned to take something frustrating and look at it more analytically.
Oh, this is my dad's family. It goes beyond just we're yellers. They literally blame their supposed Cuban blood for their yelling. We're Cuban. I want to tell them, no, motherfuckers, your great-great-grandfather arrived as a foreigner to Cuban soil, profited and moved out, and you're a bunch of narcissistic white people with zero emotional intelligence. Edith, chicos, soy mexicana. Stop doubting my experience when I'm literally part of the Latin culture. I know English because I'm bilingual. This is not a case of some cultures are louder. I am loud. There's a difference between loudness and angry yelling. Edit 2. I said white people because my father's family is literally white-skinned, and white people exist in Mexico too. Mexico has a long history of racism. I wasn't trying to imply we're from the US.
Story 2. The fact that all my friends, who usually love everyone, suddenly became too busy whenever my partner was around. I thought they were just being cliquey. They were actually just trying to protect their peace.
Literally, I'm in that situation right now. I despise my friend's girlfriend, and I don't trust her at all. I've made that abundantly clear. But he doesn't agree, and it's still his life. I can't force him to dump her, so I've shut up. I'll be civil and hope he wakes up.
I went through this with a really close college friend. His girlfriend was a constant source of problems with everyone, but she'd always play the victim, and he backed her. They got engaged, and before the wedding, a bunch of us basically staged an intervention. He picked her. She got wind of it and took out her revenge. I ended up getting uninvited from the wedding. They ended up divorced less than a year later. When it all went down, I simply said what matters most is that he's happy. If he thinks he's happier with her, that's his call, and as someone who cares about him, I hope it's the right choice. When it was all said and done, we're not as close as we used to be, but we have a relationship again, which is better than nothing. He actually holds it against me how that all played out. I don't agree, but I understand his perspective at least.
My entire friend group told my buddy when he kept staying with his now wife, despite always complaining about how much it sucks to be with her. We were all honest with him at separate points, but he just doesn't want to sleep in a bed by himself. So misery it is.
Story 3. Consistent sarcasm and snarky comments. He turned every 20-minute conversation into a 2-hour semantic battle, complaining constantly, yet never resolving anything or having the ability to problem solve on his own. A complete lack of introspection and insightful speech. Everything I did became a competition. Whether I was playing guitar or drawing, he had to give me backhanded compliments.
Don't forget, if you dare to offer a suggestion on how to solve the problem they're having, you'll get the impending lecture about how dumb a suggestion it is and the 90 ridiculous reasons why it wouldn't work.
Oof, yes. Needing to play the devil's advocate all the time, like, dude, why do you work for the devil full-time for free, apparently? Why is being a contrarian more important than being supportive and genuinely happy for other people's wins? Why is your go-to response to try to poke holes?
Reminds me of one girl I dated briefly. The first time she hung out with my friend group, she kept making sarcastic comments about me as jokes. They weren't even funny. I stopped looking forward to seeing her after that. It wasn't a long relationship.
Story 4. 2 adult kids who had gone no contact, and another kid he refused to acknowledge exists.
Did he also cry that the evil baby mama was keeping him from the kids? The main fight with my ex was that he wouldn't help with the kids. I was burnt out, married, but living like a single mother. None of the kids, who are teens now, have a relationship with him. He cries to his new second wife that I'm an evil baby mama who won't let him see his kids. Ignoring them for 15 years played no part in it.
Story 5. A couple of friends warned me that my girlfriend was cheating. I didn't believe them. Regret came in the form of a sexually transmitted infection.
I dated a girl once, and I went home on leave. I was stationed in Japan. Friends told me they were worried about my girlfriend because when I wasn't around, she was apparently flirting with other men. I came back from leave and got chlamydia. It turned out she fucked 4 guys in the 7 days I was gone.
Pride, probably. It was apparently widely known in our friend group. One told me face to face. Another wrote me a letter. It was the 90s. I ended up ghosting 95% of them out of pure embarrassment.
This happened to a good friend of mine. I told him time and time again that she was cheating because every red flag possible was waving. So many it looked like the United Nations building. He refused to believe it. About a year and a half later, I ended up dating one of her friends. We were sitting around one night, and she says, "You know, Beth is cheating on Dave." I said, Yeah, I'm sure she is. He won't listen to me. And she said, "No, like right now. Tonight. She's got some dude coming over to her house." I asked her if she minded if I hung out with Dave that night. She said, "Nope, I figured." I got him to come with me to her house that night. We saw her and the dude sitting in her living room. He knocked and busted her after her mom tried to cover for her. Fuck that bitch. All my homies hate Beth's mom. Then I wanted to talk to the dude. He stood up and said, "Dude, I didn't know, man." I said, "I know you didn't. We ain't mad at you, but come outside with me. I want to show you something." He swore I wanted to fight him, but he came out. I pointed to Dave and Beth arguing in the street and said, "See that? That's you in a year if you stay with her. I get it, she's super hot, so have your fun and get out because he's done with her." Beth never found out that my girl spilled the beans.
Story 6. The person you're in a relationship with who is constantly negative often cannot see what an absolute pain they are to be around. If you find it's a fixed personality trait, make sure to run as fast as you can. Otherwise, your entire relationship will be living in hell with them.
I lived this life with my ex-husband. I have nothing too bad to say about him. He's a good person, but it was exhausting having to carry all the emotional load for someone who could not find joy in any aspect of life. He wasn't hateful. It was just, my depression can't be treated, so I will hide out in the basement watching TV and playing video games. Eventually, that negativity and bleak outlook bled into my everyday existence. And, like you, I already have depression. I hated to do it, but I had to get out before he bled me completely dry.
My ex was competitive with everyone. He had to be right and have the last word. It was exhausting. When we were somewhere and came in separate cars, he would race home so he would arrive before I did. Truly juvenile. He was jealous of the dogs, jealous of the kids because I had better relationships with them. He would get angry if I or the kids were better than him at games or solving household issues like a clogged sink, and so on. He was also a workaholic, competitive with others at work. Everyone was a potential rival. I know that ultimately it was his feeling of inadequacy, but I could not solve it.
This is a frequent topic of discussion with my wife. She defaults to negative. To be fair, so do I at times, but I at least make it a point to be open-minded as best I can. She doesn't understand how Sisyphean it feels to not only make the effort to come up with ideas and inspirations, but then to have to defend them from the immediate criticism it feels like they receive. And over time, you just lose motivation to deal with it all until you reach a point where you realize there is very little positivity and things to look forward to, and you're just wasting your time. Fortunately, we made really good progress.
Story 7. At the start of 2024, we noticed at work that all the hand towels and tissues had been replaced with really nasty, cheaper ones that would just disintegrate in your hands. You needed about 50 of them. Anyway, someone on my team joked, if the company is struggling and needs to make cost cuts, we'll be made redundant. Roll on February 2024. We were. Fortunately, the company wasn't failing, and I was kept on until December that year with a big payoff, so it was handled as well as any redundancy could be. That said, the moral of the story: start looking for a job when they replace the hand towels with low-quality ones.
Do these lights really need to be on all the time during the day? New CEO during the walkthrough of the facility. It became obvious quickly that we're being leaned down for a sale.
See, that just annoys you. You think they have absolutely zero idea. But then that's what they were brought in for, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Tell me it was a 24/7 facility. The same company I was made redundant from. Someone wanting to climb the ladder put a suggestion forward to turn the lights off at weekends as a cost saving. We had some staff in on the weekend. Not much, usually just security, but often 2 or 3 others. To be fair, they took safety seriously, and when I heard that, I immediately said that would be dangerous and stupid. The lights are on motion sensors. If someone had an accident because we were turning lights off on the weekend, it's just not worth the £200 a year saving for a multi-billion-dollar organization. Absolute madness.
Story 8. A friend who invites you to do things they want to do, but doesn't show up for things you want to do. Took me a while to realize how fucked up that kind of dynamic is.
Oh my God, I had a friend like that. We would go to concerts together, and I suggested an artist wants to go see. The friend said that would be fun, so I got tickets as a surprise. The friend made a million excuses to get out of it and was legitimately trying to get me to take their mom. It was an older artist, so they said their mom would enjoy it more. I don't know, it was all just bizarre. The artist ended up sick and had to cancel anyway, so we never went. This is after I went to countless concerts with them, and several were a couple hours drive away. This one was local, so not some big commitment. I later realized they just took advantage of me a lot.
I think I'm sort of in this right now, which makes me sad because I've known them for 15 years at this point. When I bring it up to them, I get gaslit into believing it's all in my head. It stresses me out because I can be this close to cutting them off some days.
As someone who cut off those friends almost a year ago, it might make you feel better to walk away. I was friends with 2 people for a decade, and it seemed like it was so easy for them to ignore and gaslight me. So I decided to respect myself more and check out of that bullshit. I'm sorry you're going through this.
Story 9. It was within myself. It's weird to admit, but I became jealous, resentful, and competitive with her. I loved her, but there was this feeling inside me that wasn't good. I couldn't shake it, but I wanted to. It was selfish of me to stay, but I ignored it.
Same here. I used to be so jealous. I would need their location, always on call with them. I needed to be in contact all the time. I justified it because I got cheated on in the past, but that does not excuse my actions. Working on yourself is the best gift you can give yourself.
I suspect this happens in a lot of relationships, but people are too proud or ashamed to admit it. You're the first person I've ever seen take accountability for it.
Jealousy was a feeling, but it wasn't the main one. A lot of it was just that she came from a very wealthy, loving family. Her mom adored her. She got anything she wanted, and when we first met, she went on a year-long working holiday. She was incredibly beautiful. Her 20s looked so fun in comparison to mine. All I got from my 20s and my parents was trauma, depression, and at one stage, homelessness. None of what I mentioned was a reflection of her character, though. She was kind and sweet. I was just jealous.
Story 10. She had a warrant out for her arrest. We've been together for years, and she told me how she stole some money from a job before she quit because she was desperate. Given her backstory, which I won't go into, I can easily see why. But it also showed that when desperate, she'll do what she has to. 7 years later, during the Great Recession, I lost my job. She emptied my savings, maxed out my paid-off credit cards, and bailed.
You trusted her because of her past, and yet this happened. What a shame.
Jesus Freak in Christ.
This really hurt to read, dude. I can't imagine what living it felt like. Are you alright now, financially, emotionally?
It's the way she goes, buddy. Fucking way she goes.
Story 11. He used my car and forgot to pick me up from work while playing video games. Multiple times I had to walk home. I put up with that crap for 18 years. Story 12. The amount of alcohol he would drink and always needing to have a drink to have a good time.
I've been that guy now, teetotal. Never aggressive or anything, just neglectful and insecure. It took sobriety for me to realize that any other incompatibilities we might have had were just a drop in the ocean. Sorry that happened to you. I deserved better than the booze, and much more significantly, she deserved better than me.
Ooh, 100% this. I'm taking some space right now from someone I adore. I met him last summer, and I knew he drank a bit. He moved east for a year and came back in November. Wow, it's almost 24-hour drinking. Literally. He's a wonderful human, but I can't take this in my life.
Story 13. Casual lying. If someone casually lies about simple things like eating all the brownies, for example, they're probably the type of person who lies about everything all the time.
My ex did this, and he literally said, "It's not like that says anything about the kind of person I am." I was like, yes, it does.
My adult daughter lies about everything all the time. It's so exhausting. I don't even want to talk to her anymore. What's the point of talking to someone if it's all fiction that comes out of their mouth?
What do you mean you don't believe me? Would you like me to say the same thing again, only louder?
Story 14. Multiple texts in a row from someone because I was busy working and didn't answer.
I dated someone who would have a meltdown if I didn't respond to her texts or phone calls immediately while I was at work. However, the moment I texted her while at work, she also had a meltdown because I didn't respect her space while she was at work.
I was scrolling trying to find this before I made the comment. This is something I ignored as well. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but she later got controlling and way too needy. There were even times in the beginning when we'd talk on the phone on the way to work, and I'd end up telling her I needed to get in there to clock in. She'd get weird. She'd then say I was an asshole earlier, or accuse me of being passive-aggressive. All because I politely told her I had to get inside, and I'd call her later. It was just small talk too, nothing important. You know, because I don't want to get written up or fired.
I was hanging out with some friends, and one of them left his phone in the car. When we went to leave, he had like 37 missed calls because his girlfriend assumed he was ignoring her and just kept calling. Needless to say, it didn't work out.
Story 15. All of her ex-boyfriends were abusive and controlling. Guess who stabbed herself in the leg with a pair of scissors when I tried to end the relationship? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't me.
Most people who date one narcissistic or abusive partner end up repeating this pattern. However, her story doesn't sound like the shoe fits.
There's a saying that goes, if you run into an asshole in the morning, you ran into an asshole. If you run into assholes all day, you're the asshole.
Ah, yes. I was financially abusive because I told my ex to pay her own rent while we were living separately.
Story 16. My ex couldn't hold down a job. He kept getting fired. I believed him when he blamed the boss at each job. It definitely ended up being his fault all those times.
Oh, I went through the same thing. What makes it even crazier, he was 39 and I was 25, and when I accepted a job offer where I would make over $100,000, he told me that I should go back to working at the bar because this job wasn't that great and I'm not going to like it. Still working at that job, but no longer with that boyfriend. Best two decisions I ever made. Wish I would have seen the red flags sooner, though.
There's a regular customer at my job who's just like this. He's given various excuses, like blaming a grocery store because he didn't want to use an app on his phone to clock in, instead of a Flintstone-style punch clock. And at another job, he said, these women these days can't take a joke or a compliment. I forget which it was. The second one made my skin crawl because you can imagine how exceptionally bad his behavior had to be for the guy to actually get punished, instead of just moving the woman to a different shift.
My partner from long ago told me he got fired from his job because they said he stole money. I felt so bad that my big mouth asked, "Did you take it?" He swore no. He doesn't know who did it. Yeah, he went to prison years later for armed robbery. My big mouth was right.
Story 17. Talking about her ex every single day. I wish I was exaggerating. It was every single day.
And she still posed about him constantly, a year and a half after we broke up.
Story 18. She kicked her pregnant roommate out of her house just a couple of weeks before her due date. Fully aware there's a high possibility she'll literally be homeless. She kicked her out because she was stressed and needed to be alone to study for her finals. Also, a lot of double standards because for her, it's always different. Guess who kicked me out right after I lost my job? I still hope she will rot in hell. Story 19. The biggest red flag I ignored was my own intuition. I kept doubting myself instead of the situation, and that's what I regret the most. Story 20. that my friend only really reached out when she needed something, or how she'd suddenly and consistently disappear from my life whenever someone new entered hers. Oops, our Snapchat streak somehow died. Even though I'm still on the app constantly, I wasn't her friend. I was just filling the void.
It sucks caring about someone so much that they never have to care about you back.
Story 21. He punched a hole in a door when he was frustrated with himself. He never laid a hand on me, thank God, but I'll never forget him punching that door. It made me far too cautious around him, and I walked on eggshells around him until the day we split.
My friend's husband is like this. He punched a hole in their rental house. I came to visit, and she proudly showed me how he replaced the door because he didn't want me to see it. She didn't see the issue at all. She thought it was a cute, quirky story. I have distanced myself heavily from her because that's one of the lesser red flags. When they divorce, I'm expecting a call to help, and I'll be there to pick up the pieces, but Jesus Christ.
He doesn't allow her to listen to certain songs because he's jealous of the man who sings them. But she seems happy as can be, fighting and yelling with him until she's blue in the face. He voiced how he doesn't like me because Abuser 101 is to isolate social circles. We still text weekly, but he monitors our texts, so I refuse to say anything personal. It's usually just to gossip about things he won't have an interest in. I started dating his nightmare, a successful, loving, secure man, and invited both of them to dinner. He said she can see me alone for a limited window, like an afternoon while he's working, but he won't see me or my partner. So I'm assuming I won't be hearing from her for a while. It's a developing situation where I've basically prepared the guest room in my house with the intent that she'll wind up living with me when she escapes, whether it's 1 or 10 years from now. Hoping sooner than later. I hope your sister is able to leave soon and heal, or that he is able to fix himself. It's terrible how common this exact situation is.
I had a boss like this. When a mistake was made, he would punch the wall, stomp his feet, and just turn the brightest red while screaming. I was literally in survival mode working in that office. So glad I got out.
Story 22. A friend of mine was toxic for years. Even when other friends told me he was toxic, I refused to see it. It wasn't any big event that made me see it, but I needed some help, so I called him. He refused because I don't want to drive out there on my weekend. After helping this man build a retaining wall, helping him move, and a bunch of other things, he couldn't drive an hour to help me out. I asked, why am I the only person in this friendship helping the other person? Blocked him. Haven't looked back. Story 23. Female friends who are obsessed with sleeping with men. It's only a matter of time before they start treating you like competition or neglect a years-long friendship for a guy they matched with just a second ago.
Ugh, I'm so sorry. I had a friend leave me alone and drunk outside at 2 a.m. in a foreign country, 3 hours away from our hotel, because she had just matched with some bloke on Tinder. Some women are just not girls.
I told a girlfriend about a guy who sexually harassed me. She then went on a trip with him and expected me to console her when he ended up sexually harassing her too. Truly bizarre.
Story 24. I mistook a very narrow emotional spectrum for stability. Not the same. Not at all. I was a much younger man back then.
Never really got angry. Never really was thrilled with anything. I'm not necessarily all over the place all the time, but sadness is real, and joy can make me exuberant or giddy. I can be overcome with emotion on both sides. The death of a relative was not met with sorrow. The birth of our son was not met with joy. Sunsets were irrelevant. No joy in simple pleasures. No desire to suck the marrow out of life. Weekends were meant for rest, not living it up. Vacations were a destination, not trying to experience all the intricacies of a new culture. Books were meant to be read, not talked about. I thought she had strength and stability as we traveled through life. She wasn't necessarily dead inside, more like just not drinking it in. When side by side, I felt alone. I felt like I was dying in many ways. I ended it. Then I found someone ready to live. Life-altering. It was mostly my fault because all along I thought it was in there, ready to be unlocked. I was the blind one, hoping for something that didn't exist. I wish I hadn't been so myopic. I was young and naive.
Story 25. Just because your girlfriend is gorgeous, brilliant, fun, articulate, poised, and a rabid monkey in the sack doesn't mean she isn't also a shallow, spoiled, self-righteous, superficial, self-centered hose beast.
I'm pretty sure the ex-girlfriend in Wayne's World gets called a psycho hose beast or something. I probably haven't heard it since.
For every woman out there, no matter how beautiful, charming, and captivating she is, there is also a man who is sick of her shit, and he has very good reasons to be. The same holds true if you reverse the genders. I've just always heard the expression aimed at women.
Oh, quit being a hose beast by acting like you don't know what something means. Did I use it correctly?
Story 26. Inability to resolve conflict. I had an ex who would easily start to cry and accuse me of being mean just to shut me up whenever we had a disagreement. We didn't have many disagreements at first, so I thought it would be manageable. But as time went by, more and more disagreements came up, and the impossibility of addressing and resolving them made them accrue to the point of breakup.
Yeah, not crying, but getting upset if I brought up a concern or wanted to discuss something. Just shutting down. I can't do this right now. This is too much for me. I can't have this conversation right now, etc., etc., etc. But we could never have that conversation. I thought it would get better with time, but it didn't. It actually got worse. Till eventually, we imploded. It's so sad. We'd be a perfect couple if we ever discussed issues.
Oh yes, this one. My ex always cries at the tiniest discomfort and expects 24/7 contact on chat or call. I can't do my job or hobbies.
Story 27. He wouldn't let me bring my cat when it was time to move in together. I rehomed my cat. I will always beat myself up for it. After a traumatic 5-year marriage, we have been divorced for over 6 years now.
I'm pretty sure my husband married me because he always wanted pets, and I had a cat.
I was very allergic to cats. My wife moved in with 2. I literally got over the allergy.
Sorry you had to do that. I could never forgive myself, although I would never do that to my loyal companion or partner.
Story 28. Having to teach someone how not to disrespect you. This is something you should never have to explain. If you find yourself having to do it, it's a sign to rid that person from your life. Story 29. His sister straight up told me that she thought her brother might be a sociopath. I just thought, ha, siblings, am I right? Turns out she wasn't joking, and I think she was right.
I had a mother try to warn me off one of her daughters. She said she was selfish. I ignored it because my mother tried to warn my first serious girlfriend off of me. That didn't work, and I chalked it up to my mom and later the girl's mom being petty and hurtful. Needless to say, the girl's mom was right.
Story 30. That the dog, the cat, and the hamster all died within a week of each other, each with a bloody nose.
I thought she punched them and was wondering how the fuck she punched a hamster. For some reason, poison feels worse.
Story 31. I believed that once we got married, she would suddenly follow my lead on finances. It ruined me a lot, but the divorce saved me. 1 year later, I'm doing so much better financially, and she's struggling massively. Story 32. Easy dated a single mom with 3 kids from 3 different dads. All of them the most despicable humans on the planet. To be fair, one of them got charged with domestic violence in court for a previous partner, so definitely a case of some truths but more lies. We were friends for a long while before we started dating. Turns out I should have just run from the start. I'm not usually that fucking stupid. Story 33. Mind who your in-laws will be. You have to spend time with them as well. As much as I love my wife, fuck, I miss my ex's mom.
Dude, I totally ignored some red flags about my future in-laws because I was so in love. My husband is a great man, and I wouldn't trade him for the world, but I should have been more prepared for his insane parents.
Story 34. When you're dating a woman and she tells you she has borderline personality disorder, and you don't even look it up. I've never dated since.
Yep, I will never, ever date a person with borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder again. I understand this is a generalizing statement, but my personal experience with it, like many others, was nothing but traumatizing. I definitely don't say it lightly. I'm glad there's so many people actively working on their borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder, and I wish you nothing but success. However, a relationship with someone living with borderline personality disorder or bipolar, even when well managed, can be scary for another person to witness and is full of constant ups and downs in almost every way possible. I can guarantee you, at some point in the relationship, you'll be putting in most of the effort to remain stable while they try to work it out. Chances are it will happen repeatedly. Like the person below me who waited 13 whole years for her husband to get his act together. Best of luck to anyone in that situation, and I applaud you for being stronger than me.
Although it's often generalized as a predominantly female disorder, men can have borderline personality disorder, or BPD, too. And I feel that not acknowledging how it affects men as well as women is another big misconception about BPD. Like my 43-year-old husband, who is the most loving, emotionally mature, expressive, deep-feeling, burly, bearded, tattooed, Pierce truck driver you're ever likely to meet. He'll be running across the yard covered by nothing but a palm leaf one second, and the next he's got tears rolling down his face as he shares a sweet TikTok about puppies with me. There's a whole spectrum of big emotions for these people, and they're not all bad ones. He's worked so hard to understand and mitigate his BPD. Since his diagnosis years ago, he's never once used it as an excuse. He had to put in so much effort on his end with therapists and psychologists over a very long period of time. And I can't fathom the determination I saw in him. He refused to let BPD rule his life. It's not something that can be cured, but he's managed to get to the point where he's classified as in remission. He hasn't split in over 7 years. People forget that folks with BPD don't just feel negative emotions at magnified levels. They feel everything magnified. And that means this man has shown me more about love and what it is, what it looks like, and what it feels like than I could ever hope to comprehend. Seeing the world through the way he experiences, it has opened my eyes to a lot of the simple joys all around us that I'd never have known to look for if not for him. We always say that I am his anchor, keeping us safely grounded so that he can be my kite, showing me what it's like to fly. I fully understand people with BPD have the ability to inflict untold amounts of pain on others. But I do so wish that people would realize there is an inverse to that. With the right tools, treatment, support, and most importantly, their own will to do whatever they need to combat this disorder. Instead of inflicting misery on others, they can bestow more love and joy onto others than 10 other people combined could. They reflect what they live and feel. When they're in a positive headspace, with positive people, the emotions you get magnified are positive ones. Just putting this out there for people at the start of their journey. You'll very rarely get to hear of success and BPD in the same lifetime, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. I've lived it. It's possible. Don't give up.
Thank you. We're not a monolith. There are a ton of us managing our symptoms and working on ourselves. I understand that it can be hell dating people with BPD or borderline personality disorder who aren't self-aware or working on it. And I truly have empathy for people who are affected by someone with BPD. It's also a special kind of hell having it. It's one of those things where you only hear the horror stories because the people who generally have it handled don't create the stories for people to tell. Then the stigma grows and perpetuates, which just makes things worse. It's one of the least understood and least researched cluster B disorders, but it's also the one that shows the highest and longest rates of remission with proper treatment and commitment. Too bad we're in a society and a healthcare system that seems to actively fight against that.
Story 35. Several people warned me about this person's behavior. Turned out they were flaky as fuck. Lied a lot, made empty promises, would never say sorry, and took no accountability ever. Oh, then they'd hurt you more if you called them out. Story 36. Frankly, it was a gut feeling. Something was amiss. It turned out I was right to distrust the love bombing, and then surprised when they became really nasty when drunk. Over insecurities about our appearances, no less. The moment I started feeling on edge in the relationship was when it should have ended. Luckily, I ended that one after just a month of bad encounters. Sometimes you have to listen to your gut. A partner's interactions shouldn't stress you out. Now I'm about a month into a new relationship. We talk a lot, he's very lovey-dovey. But it's different. I don't feel stressed talking to him. It's hard to pin down what separates love bombing from simply him being romantic, but my sense is we pick up on sincerity versus manipulation subconsciously.
Love bombing, I've fallen for it, is too much too soon for the context of your relationship. Like saying, I love you, before you really truly know each other. Future faking, idealizing you. He was all about how I'm everything he ever wanted, how long does he have to wait to marry me, etc. In my experience, I believe that he meant what he said, but he didn't have the emotional maturity to distinguish between limerence and love. He was high on the new relationship energy, not me. I did feel like it was too much too soon, but it did not feel like manipulation, so I rode the wave with him. It took over a year, but once he realized I was not actually the person he made me into in his head, which I had never pretended to be, he resented me for it.
Story 37. When I jokingly said, "You are so much smarter than I am," and she very seriously answered, "Yes, it's good that you realize that." Story 38. Not getting a home inspection when buying my first house. Always get the home inspection. Story 39. A small thing very early on was constantly being late for dates. For example, one time I waited 2 hours because he spontaneously decided to see a friend first and didn't tell me. That shows a lack of respect. We were friends first, so I was already in love with him. I was 17. It lasted a year. And now that I'm 26, that relationship would have been done within a few weeks. The joys of maturing.
If they're running late, and don't even give me a heads up until after they're late, I'll leave and not say a word. Respecting each other's time is important.
Story 40. I married an abusive husband even though I saw the signs in how he treated his mother. I married him anyway. Besides 2 great kids, those were the worst years of my life until I found the strength to leave him. Story 41. Love bombing. You feel so good when someone loves you, especially if you've been neglected and abused. It's number 1 in the narcissist's playbook. 12 years of character assassination, lies, gaslighting, sexual assault, and more. I left with a panic disorder and years of therapy. Take it slow, folks. Story 42. He always complained that his ex wouldn't let him see his kids. He was always working towards saving money for a lawyer, but in the 2 years I dated him, he never got one. A couple of years after I broke up with him, I had the chance to run a background check out of curiosity. He had been arrested for trying to strangle his ex around the time he told me they broke up. Story 43. He would struggle with tackling problems head-on and would usually tell me, "I'll look at this later." It was always a lie. He was conflict avoidant as hell, and it turned into resentment over time. He would freak out planning a future together, making a doctor's appointment, and planning a trip with me. I felt in my gut it would turn into a bigger problem later. During the first few months, I wanted to trust him so bad.
Sounds like he was suffering from high anxiety.
Story 44, her saying that all her exes were narcissists. That, and her being best friends with her mother, like drinking buddies, all vacations together, shared bank accounts, and so on.
Shared bank accounts, calm down, CM Punk.
Recently, I read a quote. If you run into assholes all day long, the chances are that you are the asshole.
Enmeshment between a mom and her adult daughter could indicate narcissism in the mom.
Story 45. She could dish it out better than anyone, but wouldn't take it back. It doesn't seem like a massive red flag, but she's the only person I've ever met that I would genuinely describe as evil. Story 46. She didn't want pictures posted online, rushed to say, "I love you," and drove a coworker home but refused to talk to me over the phone while he was in the car. This led to me trying to justify the physical and verbal abuse by saying, her last one was abusive. She's just not used to not fighting all the time yet. The worst part is we acted like a married couple regularly when not fighting, and a part of me still misses that kind of stability and the feeling of thinking I loved someone. Story 47. I talked to a guy for a short time who would always say he doesn't hit women. But when he said it, he sounded like he was trying to convince me or himself of it, rather than declaring his morals. It didn't take long before he started doing things like twisting my arm a little too hard when we were play fighting, then telling me I was being dramatic about it. biting hard enough to leave bruises during sex even after I said I didn't like it, and so on. I ended up leaving because I was sure he would escalate to full-blown physical violence. Story 48. He felt uncomfortable at an event that my boss invited us, and also my parents, because he felt he was dressed too casually. No one would have noticed, but he made it all about him. He was outside sulking about it, and I felt I had to console him, thereby missing much of the event. I eventually recognized this and other sorts of manipulation and didn't let it control me, my actions, my emotions, or my relationships. Story 49. Pure, self-entitled arrogance that, in my 18-year-old naivety, I mistook for self-confidence. I learned the difference quickly. Story 50. If you've always easily gotten along with people, and yet suddenly everyone affiliated with the person you're seeing seems to hate you for reasons unknown. If you catch them in lies. If you find yourself needing to type up a list of your boundaries and expectations because they keep forgetting them and crossing lines. If they always seem distracted or confuse your stories, experiences, or conversations with someone else's. If anyone else fully believes they are also dating this person. If they lack accountability. Any form of enmeshment with another. Story 51. Not me, but the next guy. I was on a date with this girl years ago, and as I'm opening the condom wrapper, she goes, "Oh, is your pull-out game week?" Like, girl, we just met like 4 hours ago. I was wearing one regardless, but that had me double-checking it every time we changed positions. Anyway, a little under a year later, there she is on Instagram, showing off her brand new baby. It's a mixed baby. I'm white, she's black. So I began to panic, checked all my receipts, and did all kinds of math to clarify it wasn't mine. I was in the clear, but apparently someone else fell in her trap. Story 52. When someone's words are always perfect, but their actions never match. I kept making excuses for them until I realized I was basically dating their potential, not the person in front of me. Story 53. On our first date, at his place, I said I was cold. He later opened the window. I remember not understanding. Wasn't he supposed to try to please me? I was only 19. I had never really met a mean person before. It ended up being a 4-year relationship of psychological abuse. I finally left, happily married today. When I think of that moment now, I realize it was my first test, to see if I would stay, to see if I was just going to sit there and not say anything. Men like him know exactly what they're doing. Story 54. The excuses. I'm busy that day. Or, I really want to, but I have plans. Or, we'll see. Yet she continues to blow up my phone and tell me she misses me.
I had a friend like this. I realized after some time that I was pretty much a filler when they very rarely had nothing going on.
Story 55. I was in the hospital for about 17 days for leukemia treatment, and she wouldn't bring me my guitar because she didn't want me serenading any of the nurses. She repeatedly dared me to break up with her because she knew no other woman would have me. She said she would break up with me if I didn't go to therapy. I found a therapist, and the night before I was supposed to have my first appointment, she begged me not to go. I kept fighting through these things and hoped I could make things work. Turns out she sucked, and for the last nearly 9 years, I've been in an amazing, caring, supportive relationship with the kind of woman she said I would never find if I broke up with her. Story 56. He was very pushy about us starting to date within days of meeting each other. I was 17 and he was 22. I got out 2 years ago when I was 23, and leaving was the best decision I've ever made. Story 57. Financial literacy. Lack of boundaries. Entitlement. No, you cannot fix them. They will not grow up. No, they will not follow your lead. They will drown you in their red flags and blame you for not being able to overcome the anchor that they are in your life. They will also tell you they'd rather divorce you than work to improve these things, because this is who they are and they're never changing. Believe them, because they won't change, ever. Story 58. It wasn't a romantic relationship, but a friendship. This person was overly nice. It turned out they had no boundaries and couldn't take no for an answer. Well, it fell apart. Story 59. I didn't have a partner until I was 22. I'm 23 now. Sexual trauma from childhood made it hard to connect with someone in that way. I met a girl, and I'm still confused over the whole ordeal. She was a year older than me, already had a kid, and would constantly ask me for money. She'd steal alcohol from supermarkets, sexed with other guys while also wanting to be back with her ex. She also wanted me to move in with her 1 week after we started seeing each other. I felt thrown around and eventually walked away for my own peace. It was an experience that completely frightened me off other relationships for the time being.
Yikes, she had all the red flags. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Foregoing relationships for now is really smart. You deserve to be treated with respect and love, and it sounds like you maybe aren't quite ready to demand those for yourself yet.
Story 60. An obsessive need for attention. Obviously, that was going to lead to serial cheating. Story 61. My ex, let's call her Sarah, cheated on her husband, who has 3 kids at home, with the owner of the masonry company where she works. Yup. Guess how our relationship ended. Story 62. He told me flat out, I don't think I love my mother. The mother who devoted her life to staying home and raising him and his 3 siblings, while their father had a high-pressure, high-prestige job that took up all of his time and gave him a very privileged life. Story 63. Lack of accountability, boundaries, and emotional regulation, especially when it comes to themselves and their family. Guys who follow many thirst trap accounts on social media, or keep exes that were more like flings around for too long, until you have to have that dramatic conversation. Don't try to reason with them or talk about it, even if it seems like they're just having a bad day, month, or year, or you think it's too early in the relationship. If you've already told them how those things make you feel, and you see they lied and are doing exactly what you labeled as your red flags before you became official, then when you're official and they keep doing it, just leave. A partner who seems annoyed with you at the gym. It's not just because he loves the gym so much and is focused, or you're not doing something right. It's because that's his socialization time and flirt time. How dare you encroach? Not all gym guys are like this, but a lot are trying to get attention from gym girls. Don't date a guy on steroids or who drinks multiple beers with every meal. Don't be a stupid 23-year-old thinking you're young and it's okay because at 30 you realize he's just an alcoholic, and those steroids live up to all the stereotypes. Even if he seems so chill in the beginning, later you find he has no impulse control, is manipulative, moody, stonewalls you, lacks morals, and needs constant validation from others. Yeah, typing it out sounds obvious, but I was assured they just made him a better, stronger person. I was dumb and in love. Still am. But maybe I can prevent a young girl from following in my delusional mindset. Story 64. When we would fight while we were still dating, my husband would shut down my cell phone service. I can't regret having my children, but still. Story 65. They were talking crap behind other people's backs, but they were nice to me. Well, guess what? Turns out they did the same thing to me too. Story 66. He was really vindictive and petty with his roommates. He'd run shoes in the dryer at 3 a.m. to punish them for leaving laundry in the machine, or because the roommates' kids ran around at a reasonable time in the morning. He set traps to catch people sneaking around in his things. We ended up having to live together after I finally ended it with him. He would set the heat to 80 degrees in the middle of the night. He'd hide things. I couldn't do anything right, even the dishes.
I bet he has no friends. He really defines petty in every way.
Story 67. She didn't have any friends. This was despite living near the same town she grew up in. Most of her childhood friends seemed to have gone their own way. Later, I learned it was because my ex was a narcissistic liar. Story 68. 2 months into dating this guy, we were going to a birthday party for a friend's child. I had a handmade gift for the kid, and I asked my boyfriend if he wanted to add something to it too, since he was close with the parents and the handmade gift was all from me. He looked confused and said, "But you're getting invited to the party through me," meaning I would be getting a free meal at the party for his friend's kid, and therefore I should be the one supplying the gift. I thought maybe he was just kinda young, he was 26, and didn't have a good understanding of basic gift-giving etiquette. So I let it go. But the next year of our relationship was filled with similar rationalizations, like him telling me I should pay for lunch because we ate dinner at his parents' house the night before. The dude was exhausting. Story 69, hearing, but not comprehending. During our first couple of dates, My ex said, "I don't cheat. Why would a person feel the need to announce that? Not cheating is something that normal, decent people do, in my opinion." Then he proceeded to tell me about all the times he cheated, giving his justifications. Sure enough, when we married, he was a frequent cheater. People will tell you a lot about themselves if you listen. Story 70. When she hugged me and moaned my friend's name, I was a very distrusting person before that, and I wanted to be better, so I ignored it, assuming I misheard it. I did not. They hooked up while I was with her. Story 71. Honestly, for me, it was ignoring how someone always dismissed my feelings. At the time, I brushed it off, thinking they were just stressed or didn't mean it. But looking back, it was a clear sign that they didn't really respect my boundaries. Definitely a lesson learned the hard way. Story 72. There were many red flags in my 21-year relationship with my now ex-wife, but the biggest was that she was talking about the new principal she worked with at her school a couple of years ago and said, "I love him," quite seriously. Naturally, I was taken aback but thought she was joking or exaggerating. I called her on it and I think I said, "That's a weird thing to say. I hope you're not being serious." She said she was, but then started to backtrack to clarify she loved him as a colleague. He was so supportive at work of her career advancement, but that it wasn't in a romantic way. On Easter Monday, 2025, I found evidence that they had been having an affair, and it had turned physical after a school trip they chaperoned in the spring of 2024. Her behavior towards me and personality had dramatically changed after that trip, and I had been struggling to understand why. Now I knew. We had been together 2 decades, were married, have 3 kids. She had never given me any signs of being disloyal in the past. Quite the opposite, actually. So although her telling me she loved the guy, in retrospect, was a huge red flag, and any outsider to the situation would say I'm an idiot for ignoring it. At the time, the evidence from our 2-decade-long relationship outweighed my suspicion, and I sloughed it off as weird but likely not serious. I was wrong. Story 73. A common red flag I came across when I was younger is that the people I was attracted to were getting their lives together. Careers, school, whatever. And they weren't ready to have me as a permanent part of their life. Sad for me, but I can accept it now that I'm older. I'll even say thank you to the one who destroyed me back in the day, because it caused me to reinvent myself, and thus I am happy and whole now. Story 74. I've cheated on every partner I've had. You'll never guess how that relationship ended. Story 75. He said his ex was psycho. Plot twist. I'm now the psycho ex he tells his new girl about. Story 76. What's true in the beginning is true in the end. If you compromised on something from day one, it'll be a part of why you left at the end. Story 77. Everything in her life sucked, except me. That put me under a lot of pressure to be great, which was good for a while, but then burned me out after a year of dating. I became her personal therapist, and my life became super stressful. Story 78. I organized a date. It was something new for me too, so I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't the best fit for either of us, and he proceeded to complain for the rest of the night. No glass half full. The glass was empty, and he was very vocal about it. He was like that throughout the whole relationship. I never knew a man could nag and complain that much. Red flag. Complaining and nagging. And life is hard. Find someone who sees it as glass half full. Story 79. How my then partner talked about other people. Sure, they were great to me, so I ignored or excused how they talked about others. Story 80. Lack of any self-accountability. Everything was always someone else's fault. Other people, their parents, their friends, past relationships, their employer, the community, society, the government, etc., etc. Story 81. I accidentally saw a message that my ex sent to his sister, telling her that I have a good credit score. Needless to say, I was his sugar mama, from meals to vacations to paying his rent. I don't know what I was thinking. Never again. Story 82. She threatened self-harm after I said I wasn't sure it would work. It had only been a month. I was too nice, and she manipulated the fuck out of me. I wasted so much of my life on her. Story 83. Being ignored or ghosted as a punishment. I wasn't emotionally mature enough at the time to recognize this as a red flag. However, being completely ghosted on 3 separate occasions within the first 6 months for at least a week should have clued me in. Still, it took me 13 years that turned into hell, to love myself well enough to finally get away. Story 84. When I struggle with jealousy and massive insecurity in the relationship in general, I'm actually quite calm and stable in relationships. The 2 times I didn't recognize myself anymore and started feeling a lot of insecurity and jealousy, it turned out they were cheating on me. Apparently, subconsciously, I pick it up faster when someone's showing fishy behavior than I realize rationally. Story 85. The check engine light came on in the car, but nothing sounded off while driving. Teenage me thought, it's fine. It was not fine. In fact, it was downright horrible. It resulted in an entire replacement of the power steering system. Story 86. If their mom or dad hates you without giving you a chance, don't stick it out. If they start targeting you, picking fights, making jokes at your expense, acting jealous of you, just leave no matter how much you love them. Emotional incest is real. Sometimes that line between emotional incest and actual incest has been crossed, and you just don't know it until you do. Parents sexually competing with their son or daughter's significant other is real. 3's a fucking crowd, and their parent will try to break you up. Run like hell if the parent starts messaging your exes. If the parent and adult child are enmeshed, what do you think the rest of the family looks like? They will not understand you. They are in on it. They will deny your reality and deny any conflict you had with one of their family members. Your privacy will not be respected in an enmeshed family. If they abuse you, they will do so as a group. And if they abuse you, they will abuse your child. Don't let someone's sob story become your sob story. Story 87. She straight up told me she was no good for me, and as it turned out, she was no good for me. She straight up told me, and I was all, no, I can help her. I can fix her. People have to want to help themselves. Story 88. The job I'm in didn't follow the usual hiring practices you find elsewhere for a similar job. That's because this job sucks and they can't retain people. Story 89. She was actively cheating on her boyfriend with me for months. She told me he was a band-aid that needed ripping off, but kept telling me she needed more time to actually do it. Turns out she lies to almost everyone in her life to make herself seem innocent. Story 90. That the dude who engineered a situation where we would get together and then started doing all these crazy nice things and moved himself into my house will indeed actually turn out to be a person who has crazy issues with anxious attachment and coercive control. Story 91. Always out with friends. Flaky replies, I love traveling, wouldn't reciprocate affection, and so on. Story 92. I was speaking to my wife's psychology professor. So, he asked, you're married to Patty. What's that like? Story 93. Using terrible words to talk about his mother. Of course, the same words were used to talk about me later. Story 94. Small signs pointing to the risk of cheating. It was cheating, but I was gaslight that I was trying to control her and suffocate her. Story 95. I was desperate and had low self-esteem. He had separated from his wife 8 months ago and was just using me to fill the gap she left. I was using him to fill the emptiness I had from low self-esteem. It was a disaster. Story 96. He spoke badly of all his exes, calling them all bad and sluts. Guess what happened? We broke up and he spoke even worse about me, even though he was the one who gave me the time of day.